Well, good morning, Codger Biker here. What's all this then? So here I am, travelling through tunnels with a slightly different sound to my usual KTM. I'm on a 4-cylinder Honda CB650R. I rode this bike before, and when I returned home the camera had failed, so hoping today will be a bit more successful. I'm in Colwyn Bay, a very cold morning, 2 degrees, so I won't be ripping it around too much, but the sun is coming out. Just got off my own bike, which has got heated grips. Unfortunately this bike, the demo, doesn't have heated grips, which is a shame. Other than that, my first impressions are that on an icy morning like this, that smooth engine and the relatively low torque at the bottom end is a good thing, which is actually very sweet to ride. So it's got an LCD screen, which is colour, I think, typical Honda mirrors, reasonably wide handlebars. The riding position is your feet are quite high in a sort of sporty position, but there's not much weight on your wrist, so sort of a semi-sporty tuck, I suppose. The reason I'm interested in this bike is because I've wondered for a long time why Honda don't put this engine in something like a Tracer, a sort of touring adventure bike, because it's such a sweet engine. For the road, and it's quite low torque. I suppose really the fashion now is to have 2 cylinders with high torque like my own bike, and then control it all with traction control. This bike does have traction control, but it's either on or off, that's it. But even on a cool morning like today, it feels so planted, because it doesn't yank at the back wheel in the same way as the twin does, until you get to 8,000 revs, that is. Then it goes. Just drop a gear and I'll show you. That's 6,000 revs and it just rips. Such a sweet engine. So the mirrors are typical Honda mirrors, got a good view behind me on the right hand side. The left hand side, it seems a little bit off. I think that probably just needs adjusting, but the right hand side at the moment, the way it's set, I can see right behind me, very good. So I don't think there's anything with, at all wrong with the mirrors, it just needs setting properly. Got no screen obviously, and it's a very cold morning, but the wind is so smooth that it's really not a problem. If I had it, I'd probably fit a little fly screen or something, but I have to say it's not, there's no turbulence whatsoever. Yeah, I've adjusted the mirrors and they're just fine. Mirrors are fine, seats quite comfortable. Because you're leaning forward, you do kind of have a different posterior contact than you do with an adventure bike, obviously. And it's got a little ridge in the back which just holds you in position. The legs fit in nicely, my height. It's a great bike for my sort of height, 5'9", 5'10". I can flat foot it easily. I think the seat height's 820, or it might even be 810, I think. So it's easy to flat foot if you're a smaller rider, plenty of power. And its main party trick is this, that engine. Just goes. It's sweet. Sweet as a nut. It's not a Fireblade engine. You get that in the 1000, I think, or the old Fireblade engine. but even so, it's a sweet little 4-cylinder unit. And I have to say, I've thought for a long time, why don't Honda put that engine into something like a Tracer? And then I saw the EICMA show and in MCN this week that they're proposing what they call a CB4, I think they're calling it, which is basically what I've just said, this engine or something similar, 4-cylinder 650 engine I believe, into that style of bike, and I'm really looking forward to that if it comes out. The only thing I would say about it, what I've seen of it, is I wish they'd do a little bit more with the front-on presence with the lights. They look very small to me. So if I was to buy one of those, I'd be putting on auxiliary lights, I think. It amazes me that motorcycles still haven't got the lights as good as cheapo scooters have got. Maybe that's just me. I did see a review of this bike recently where they said, oh, I'm in 6th gear and I'm doing 60 miles an hour, it's got no more to give, which is ridiculous. I think it's somebody who only rides twin cylinder bikes. In 60 miles an hour, which I'm almost starting 6th gear, you're doing 4,000 revs. This bike doesn't come alive until you get to 8,000 revs, and it will rev all the way to 12,000. So its power band really sort of 7 to 11. Lovely tunnel noise. I have to say, it feels absolutely planted, even on this wet and icy road. Of course, the Honda indicator is in the wrong place, or it's in the Honda place. I've already pressed the horn once trying to change directions. Look at that beautiful sea there. Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Now these yellow lines here are actually ridged to slow you down, to provide some feedback, and you can tell that the suspension on this is on the firmer side, which you'd expect on a sort of street road bike, but it handled them fine. So the suspension's good. I don't think it's adjustable. I think it's adjustable for preload rather, only. This bike really does go when it goes. Oh, I love that. Some mountains. Yeah, if you drop a gear and open up, once it hits that sort of 7,000, there we go. It really goes. Now, I had a choice this morning to take out the CB1000R or the CB650R. I decided on the 650R, just because really I see my sort of interest in the sort of mid-range of bikes these days. I've come down from a 1000cc bike to 790, and I think there's more fun to be had really, especially on a morning like this. You can use all of this bike. This engine will run in any gear virtually at any revs you like. So I'm in 5th doing 30 miles an hour and it's not complaining at all. It will rev up. Childish, but good. In an age where virtually everybody seems to be going over to twins, including myself, I'm glad to see that Honda is still making some 4-cylinder engines. I think Suzuki do as well, in this range I mean, non-sport bike. The first time I ever had a go on a 4-cylinder Honda was back in the 80s. My friend Ian, hello Ian, you're watching, turned up at my house one day out of the blue on a CB650R. Absolutely beautiful bike. Well, better than that, I said to him, could I have a go? And he went, yeah, of course you can. And I've never forgotten that day. Really, that was the day where I think my love of motorcycles was sealed forever, because riding that bike up and down the road where I lived without a crash helmet, as I seem to remember, was just one of the most awe-inspiring events of my motoring life of any kind. It's interesting because that bike seemed absolutely massive, and this is a 650 4-cylinder bike, and it feels tiny. Not tiny, but it feels small compared to the giant adventure bikes you see now. This would be a great bike to have at the back of your garage if you wanted a weekend blast. You know it's going to run for 20 years at least, no problems with basic maintenance. And it's always going to have that engine. Okay, I'm going to pull over a little bit further down here, have a look at it, get back to you then. Oh, hang on, there's another tunnel. If you live near a tunnel, get a 4-cylinder bike. So there you can see it. It's a nice naked 650cc 4-cylinder motorcycle. Very honest, a lovely thing to have. It's the sort of thing that I'd like as a second bike, just to put in the back of the garage for weekends. If you look at those exhaust pipes, the 4-into-1 there, if you're my age you think Honda 404, and I think it sort of kind of harks back to that. The sound of it reminds me of the old 404. I'm sure somebody at school had a 404. I remember them coming in, they was a year older than us. I was astounded by it. It seemed to be massive. So you got double front discs. Brakes are very good, very smooth on this. There's lovely headers on the exhaust. The rest of the exhaust is sort of okay. It's low mounted modern style. I don't suppose you could put a chrome one on that. Old fashioned style wouldn't really go with the rest of the styling of the bike. It's a very, very easy bike to ride. LED headlights, LED indicators. I think the indicators do the typical Honda trick of when the bike's on, they're on as you're going along. There's a little bit of extra front on visibility. I don't know if you can see that. They're very good. There's the main beam. Excellent headlights. Like those very much. What I would say is I wish the headlights on these modern bikes came out a little bit further, so that when you're actually sitting on the bike in this position and you're looking ahead, you could see the headlight. I do find it a little bit off-putting that you just see the top of the dash and no headlight. I just think when you, maybe it's just me, but when you're sitting on a bike, I'd like to see something poking out the front, old school style I suppose. That's the dash itself. It's a bit small. I'm used to a TFT, but this one's not going to fill up with water and probably last for years. So you can see you've got your speeds, your revs, time, fuel gauge, tells you what gear you're in, tells you how many miles you've done. There are various other features on it, I believe. If you press there's some buttons here to press to change it. Trip counters, average miles per gallon says 54 or 53.9. I think this probably do about 55-60 miles to the gallon. It's a really nice bike. Switch gears, typical Honda. Feels very nice. Always got that lovely sound on the hand. It's a very, very nice 4-cylinder 650cc mid-size motorcycle. Is it for me? Probably not. As an adventure advocate these days, I'd like to see that engine into something with higher handlebars, maybe a 17-19 wheel, but not for off-road, for travel bike I'd call it, or a sport adventure tourer they call them now. I think they're adventure tourers. It's so complicated because we're splitting hairs really. But yeah, 4-cylinder adventure tourer on the lines of the CB4 I think would be just ideal for a codger. I do like it though. This is a very nice bike. Okay, I'm going to ride it some more. I think that's basically everything to say. Nothing to complain about apart from the seating position, and that's because I'm old. So, from the lovely Colwyn Bay Beach on a very cold but sunny day, Codger Biker is out. I'm going to ride this some more. I love this bike. Don't tell Ludwig.